And we have a very special guest tonight, Vernon Jones. He walked away from the Democratic Party and delivered a speech in favor of Donald Trump at the Republican National Convention. Why did he make the switch? And what does he make of the election race? I spoke to the representative from Georgia earlier today. Thank you very much for being with us on WION.
Thank you for having me.
My first question, why did you switch sides? Have you switched sides?
Well, I support Donald Trump because he gets results. And that's what we need in America. We need a president that can come in and get things done. When you look at what he did prior to the pandemic, our economy was literally on steroids. Job creation was through the roof. Unemployment was very low, record low, and certainly for African Americans. At the same time, he was able to secure our borders and start making sure that we enforce the law. But also, this president was good about helping historical Black colleges in terms of financial support, which we've never got before. So this president has been about results.
Does that include getting things done and the results? Does that list also include his response to the Wuhan virus pandemic, as we call it here?
I think this president has faced what no other president has faced in recent time. He is listening to his health professionals. He's listening to the science. And at the same time, he's listening to other states and governments and how to deal with this. But I think he's done an amazing job. He's provided more than adequate resources to many of the cities, many of the states, getting them the tools and resources that they need. But remember, a lot of the pandemic is handled locally, not by the federal government. For example, like in the state of New York, Governor Cuomo, when he ordered those infected seniors to be sent to nursing homes without protocol, it infected a lot of those people and a lot of them died. That had nothing to do with the president. That had to do with state policies and procedures. So this president has done an amazing job putting us on the fast track and pushing for vaccination. Yes, ma'am, this president has handled this very well considering the circumstances.
For the longest time, he did not wear a mask. A new book says that he tried to underplay the threat of the pandemic. And you say he was listening to professionals. According to the reports that I've read from the US, he's not listening to a certain Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Well, I think you can agree that there are many in the press who oppose this president, and they're making it obvious, making it known. Their stories are fake. As a matter of fact, if you look at a lot of the press, including the New York Times, they were reporting early on that this could not be spreaded through humans. They were also saying that this report was coming from China, but they didn't call it. But they didn't call themselves racist as they call President Trump. So a lot of this is just fodder. It's an election year. These books that are coming out, they're for profit, and you and I know that.
I was reading about you, and my research threw up an interesting write-up. Let me quote from it. Jones has run as a Democrat, but does not march to the beat of a political party. In 2000, he endorsed Democrat Howard Dean's presidential bid, but voted for Republican George W. Bush. In 2007, he said he backed the idea of a fair tax, which is a flat tax proposal that some support in conservative and libertarian circles. Have you always had this one foot in, one foot out of the party that you now represent in the House of Representatives?
Well, I think that shows you that I'm an independent thinker. I'm an independent voter. I call balls and strikes. I work on both sides of the aisle. I don't look for the party. I look for who has the best idea. And I put my country before my party. And that's the problem. That's what's causing the gridlock, this partisan politics. But, you know, it was also based on how I was reared. Southerner, by two parents that were fiscally conservative, faith-based, among other things. And so these are my beliefs. This is what I support. And I wish more of politicians did the same thing, and we can get a lot more done.
Let me also quote something that you said a few days back. Congress should hold hearings and hear testimonies from those of us who are being attacked. It should also do a thorough investigation to see who's funding these professional domestic terrorists, and they should be held accountable. You're saying this for protesters in the Black Lives Matter campaign.
Well, first of all, we're seeing that all Black lives do not matter to Black Lives Matter. We're also seeing that Black lives is based on a Marxist and socialist background, and that's their agenda. That's what they push for. They strike the Black community with the nucleus of the Black community, which means they are against the Black male being the head of the household, the father, which is important to Black families. So when you look at what Black lives stand for, It is hypocritical, and at the same time, it's misleading. They are not protesting. They are literally rioting. It's the big difference. I support protesting. That's what America stands for, the right to protest for your rights. However, when you're seeing looting and burning and shooting, including killing a black police officer and killing other blacks and a 1-year-old baby, an 8-year-old baby girl here in Atlanta, that's not protesting. That's domestic terrorism. And it's being funded because they're well organized. They are going from city to city, burning cities, causing destruction. And it needs to be addressed. And we can tell you without a doubt that it's been funded. And when we hold these congressional hearings, you'll be able to find out who's funding this, why they're funding it, how they're funding it, and get to the bottom of this destruction of America and its communities. It is just outrageous what is happening.
Do you know who's funding these protests?
Well, we have ideas. There are many speculation that it's George Soros. You actually see major sponsors that you know of who are contributing to Black Lives Matter. Where's that money going? Who's tracking that money? They're getting literally thousands and thousands, millions of dollars from the sports industry, from the entertainment industry, from Hollywood, et cetera, et cetera. How's that money being funded? They're not providing any social programs. They're not building any schools. They're not doing any prison reform. They're not doing any economic development. Where is this money going? What is it being used for?
Would you agree that racism is a problem in America and the president's statements may be feeding the divide?
No, I actually think the Democrats are feeding the divide, because if you look at the Democratic Party and Joe Biden and some of the things they say and they do, first of all, they do not support African Americans who are independent, that can think for themselves. As a matter of fact, they want African Americans to be the first to get their votes, and then they throw them off the bus. They address everyone's issues except African Americans. And when you have a Joe Biden who supported Senator Robert Byrd, spoke at his eulogy, called him a mentor, that actually he was a card-carrying chapter president of the Ku Klux Klan. When you look at the Democratic Party, they were ones who were against freeing the slaves. They were the ones who started the Ku Klux Klan. They're the ones who voted a lot against the Civil Rights and Voters' Rights Act. And when Joe Biden can actually say in 2020 that you're not, if you don't vote for him, that you ain't black, ain't is offensive. I guess he's trying to talk some jive talk, but I don't relate to it. The fact of it is, it tells you that the Democratic Party is not a part of a big tent, certainly not for blacks. The bigotry in the Democratic Party is just raging. Then Joe Biden came back again and just said recently that blacks are not as diverse in their thought process. That sounds like Margaret Sanger, who was a Democrat, who founded Planned Parenthood, who said that blacks, that they're defected and that they needed to be weeded out like weeds. By the way, that same person was called later, Hillary Clinton said that she admired the courage of Margaret Sanger. These are Democrats. These aren't Republicans. These are Democrats. They get our votes, but they don't do anything for us. They have us to carry their water, but they don't let us drink the water.
Not talking about Republicans, I was talking about Donald Trump, and I could go into his statements, but I'll leave it for some other time. Your thoughts on the Democrats picking Kamala Harris for the vice presidential ticket?
Well, when I see Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, I don't see a bouquet of roses. What I see is cactus and kudzu. One is succulent and the other is evasive, and not necessarily in that order. One was known to lock up black people, the other was known to lock down black people and brown people. And so there's no substance. And remember this, going back to racism, wasn't it Kamala Harris that called Joe Biden out in almost every one of the debates about him being anti-busing and about him and his bigotry and his background, even owning a home that the deed was restricted where they couldn't sell it to black people? I don't know about that being with Donald Trump. So when I look at who's really causing the divisiveness here, it's the Democrats, all the way down to where they are not calling out Black Lives Matter and those rich white kids who are coming from wealthy communities, who's causing this destruction. And who's calling them out? Nobody in the Democratic Party are calling them out. No one at all. Specifically call out Black Lives Matter and Antifa. And so to me, that's what's dividing this country. That's what's burning up our neighborhoods. That's what's hurting us in our community.
Do you believe Donald Trump will win this election? Because there are reports that say that his campaign may be running out of cash.
Well, I can say this. Donald Trump did not raise as much money as Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump was all the polls said by the liberal media here in America that Donald Trump had no pathway to win the presidency. Well, we see now that that was fake news. It's because they wanted to shape the narrative. They wanted to help out Hillary Clinton. The fact of it is, right now, Black people are afraid to come out. Many of them are afraid to come out and say they support Donald Trump because they don't want to be called a sellout. There are many white people who want to come out and support Donald Trump, but they don't want to be called a racist. And so what you're going to have is that silent majority, just like you had in 2016. They're going to come out and they're going to we are going to reelect Donald Trump to president.
We'll see then. Vernon Jones, thank you very much for joining us here on Beyond.
Thank you.